All right, folks, let's talk about Hindu sacred texts. So as mentioned in the prior lecture, in this class we will discuss 5 major Hindu texts: the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita of classical Hinduism, and the laws of Manu and the Puranas, which are characteristic of post-classical Hinduism. Now, as is revealed in our visual aid, these 5 major texts of the Hindu tradition were written over the course of thousands of years from the early Vedic period to roughly like what we call medieval Hinduism. And we also learned that these 5 texts are broken into 2 categories: shruti texts and smriti texts. So as I promised from the last presentation, we will discuss what these are. So what is a shruti text? Well, shruti texts refer to the earliest texts in Hinduism, sacred books which had been heard by prophet poets called rishis. And according to tradition, the early rishis would experience ecstatic trances after consuming the intoxicating drink soma and would hear messages from the divine world. And 2 examples of shruti texts would be the Vedas, which is a collection of the foundational texts of Hinduism, and the Upanishads, which are philosophical and theological commentary on the Vedas. So now we know that shruti texts refer to texts which are heard by the rishis or these kind of early poet prophets. So what are smriti texts? So smriti texts refer to texts written by what are called rishi smriti, or the prophets who remember events of the past, present, and future. In other words, the rishi smriti have the gift of what is called clairvoyance, being able to recall events in which they weren't present from the past, present, and future. And there are 3 examples of smriti texts in the Hindu tradition. The first would be the Bhagavad Gita, which is a famous spiritual text regarding the teachings of Lord Krishna. The laws of Manu, which is a set of laws and customs regarding the Hindu religious life. And lastly, the Puranas, which is a set of medieval Hindu texts on the actions of the later Hindu gods and goddesses. So whereas a shruti text is one which is heard by these early rishis or poet prophets, the smriti texts refer to those which are remembered by the rishi smriti, or prophets with the gift of clairvoyance. So in our survey of Hinduism, we will study Hindu texts in chronological order, beginning with the Vedas and ending with the Puranas. And in this process, we will study a variety of diverse and seemingly conflicting teachings. So if anyone becomes confused, please do not hesitate to contact me.